Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. We just talked about conference consolidation and kind of some of the teams we see and where they fit into the new conferences. But we're going to talk about the playoff now, and we have a couple more graphics to show you in regards to the playoff. There are tons of stuff happening around it. Obviously, the main thing that is going on has been the financial agreement that has come to the table for a lot of these teams, and pretty much everyone has agreed to it. Just to refresh everyone's memory of what it is, it looks like they are sitting around 29% to the SEC and the Big Ten respectively, then about 17 to the ACC, around 14.5 or so to the Big 12, and then the remaining split between the Pac-2, as I'm calling it, Notre Dame, Group of Five, all those teams. So a ton happening here, and as we can see, the gap is starting to grow between the two big boys and everyone else, pretty much. And the worry is that one of these three teams, the ACC, the Pac-12, or the Big 12, the teams that are sort of towards the bottom of the Power 5 here, that they might fall down into the Mountain West American portion of it. So I'm curious from y'all's perspective, first of all, what stands out to you from here, but also who's kind of in the best position, or I guess the worst position, to fall down into that group that we don't talk about nearly as much when we talk about the playoff, especially.
Faith, you want to go?
Okay. So on our show this past week, we talked a little bit about Pac-12 or Pac-2. We also call it the Pac-2. And what came out with this revenue distribution. As low as it is, there's only two teams in the Pac-12 right now. So, I mean, and they got, what was it? How much did they get?
They got 65 million total from just the recent settlement.
They got 65 from the departing, and then 3.6 from the playoff.
Yeah.
And the newer.
So
plus what they're getting from March Madness.
Yeah. So as low as it seems, like, they are not struggling right now. They are, with only two teams, they are raking in that money. I honestly, Tate and I, like, I think a month ago, we're talking about how we thought the Pac-12 was just gonna like completely be done with, and now it looks like they're on the come up, and it seems like maybe that because of everything that's going on in the ACC right now, and how much money they got, and obviously they were pretty upset with the amount of money that they got in their portion. Tate and I feel like the ACC is actually on the come down now. So, but Pac-12, I was very shocked when that news came out that they were getting that amount of money. I was like, that's crazy.
I agree. Now, the ACC is the one that I look at and I say is in the most trouble. It sounds kind of crazy to say, and I've said this recently. I feel like in many ways, the Pac-12 could end up in a better situation than the ACC. It is pretty much, to me, it's just a matter of time before Clemson and Florida State leaves. If Clemson and Florida State leaves, then North Carolina, Miami are not far behind. So, and maybe Virginia. At that point, that conference starts to collapse. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Big 12 is another one just waiting there. There's been talk of them eyeing Duke. There's talk of them eyeing North Carolina State, Pittsburgh. There was another one over there, Louisville.
I was about to say,
yeah, they want to be not only a football program, but they want to be able to spin off and have a television deal just for Big 12 basketball and make Big 12 basketball a major income generator. And being able to bring in an NC State, a Louisville, or a Duke, Pittsburgh, and all those guys into the Pac-12, the Big 12 would be a huge feather in their cap. That's the reason why I look at the ACC as the one that is in the biggest trouble, because at the top of it, you got the two big bosses, the Big Ten and the SEC, that are truly eyeing their top teams. And when we say eyeing their top teams, that's all of them. They want Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Granted, Notre Dame's not in there, but they do want Notre Dame. North Carolina, Florida, Florida State, Miami, all those schools, those top teams have a landing spot in a conference that's going to pay them so much more. It's worth leaving the ACC. If the ACC falls, and part of making the ACC fall would be ESPN saying, we're not going to continue the contract. Exactly. They lose that television contract. The rest of those guys, I think, are going to flock to the Big 12, or maybe even a rebuilt Pac-12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel like. Go ahead.
When you talk about the Big 12, the Big 12, in my opinion, is the most interesting of the group, just because the basketball conference they're trying to build out there is second to none by a comfortable margin. When you talk about Houston and Kansas possibly bringing in Duke, I mean, it would just be insane what they're building from a basketball perspective. So although we talk about football all the time, I mean, the amount of money they would be able to bring in around this time of year in March would just be insane. And the ACC in the same way, where everything's kind of slowly crumbling around them and everyone's just waiting for everything to fall apart so they can pick apart kind of the carcass of it. So I would agree. I think the ACC is in a really tough spot. I think the big question here, obviously, is did they get it right? Was this kind of a fair agreement among everyone? And one of the interesting things that has been brought up in that has been this idea that there obviously has been some dominance among the SEC in the Big Ten when you talk about just where they are in the sport throughout these last couple of years, and this obviously breaks that down in pretty clear terms. The SEC and the Big Ten have been really the big players in college football. So I guess the question for the playoff committee was, how much credence do we give to past performance? How much credence do we give to what they've been to this sport over the past 10 years, or what are they going to be for the next 5 years? And I think when you look at the past at least couple of years, they seem to have gotten it right? The SEC and the Big Ten have been pretty much dominating the way of things in college football for quite some time. But I'm curious if anything stands out to you guys. I know the group of five getting a little bit higher of a share than I think they might have expected, or this would have shown they would have gotten in this agreement for sure.
I think when you talk about the group of five, I think a big part of the group of five is them negotiating with the Pac-12. I think the negotiations with the Pac-12 made it so that the group of five became more important, because exactly. Pac-12 kind of realizes that they're going to be kind of grouped in with that group of five and putting a situation in where they're taken care of. What I didn't like is the fact that the ACC agreed to this contract. It's a situation where it just made them admit that they are a tick below the SEC and the Big Ten, and I think that's what caused the biggest problems for them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I think we're running a little bit low on time here, so Faith, real quick, and then we'll wrap up this segment here.
I mean, I can understand why the ACC is not very happy.
Exactly.
I mean, the group of five and the Pac-12 are getting a large amount of money that obviously they probably shouldn't have gotten, and it makes sense as to why the ACC is upset with the amount of money that they got, especially like looking at the large margin of what the SEC and the Big Ten are getting. That made me make sense as to why they're so upset about that. I would be upset about that.
No, definitely. I mean, I think when we look at all this type of stuff and we kind of break down this more and more, it feels like the ACC has been making a lot of poor decisions, but this might be number one among the group, because this might have just wrote their death note as a conference, and you hate to see it, obviously. I mean, you always want everyone to be a part of the picture, but at this point it is pretty much war when it comes to conference realignment, so you got to be on your toes for sure. But we're going to wrap up with these two guests here. Thank you guys so much for joining us here. We definitely had a great time. Would love to have you guys on again. But we are going to take our second break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about pro days. There were tons of pro days across the country and want to break down all of those for you guys. So stick with us and we will be right back.